We don't think about how things overlap, how is such things as intersectionality, or where it is the discriminatory similarities between what it is to be black versus what it is to be an actual black woman. And that similarity is at the same time still a gap that we sort of look at, but we're not viewing the right way.
One of the things I was really excited to talk about, mainly because this is kind of, for me, where this journey began, is just this idea of how black women are depicted in sports and media. And I guess we'll start with you, Maria, because you probably had the most recent incidents around all of this. But if you can share kind of your experience and what that maybe feels like, or how you deal with that.
I think, and Taylor knows this too, I think we're hypersexualized as far as a reporter is concerned, where on the flip side of that, if you look at Serena Williams or even Natasha, if we're talking about the WNBA, they're almost like they're judging, our bodies are always being judged more than anyone else's body. And it's either being hypersexualized or it's being condemned because it's too athletic and that's not what people want. Or, it expands, there's a spectrum. But I think that the theme in it is that people feel as if they have the right to judge our bodies, to inspect our bodies, to say what is right and wrong with our bodies. And that's just not the case. And I think for the most part, maybe if you're looking at a white woman, you would say, well, she's cute and she's fine. And it's fine. Da, 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 da. But like I told you in my situation, it was a leather jacket and it translated into a porn star. And it's just like, how did we get there? But I think that's kind of the narrative, and maybe Dr. Lee can speak to this, that it's so deeply embedded. It might go all the way back to slavery. Like, I don't know where it comes from, but I know that it hurts every time I see it, because I feel like I work really hard. We all work really hard to make sure that we're respected in a certain way. And so when comments or certain thought processes come out of left field and we're like, there's no control that we could possibly have over that. Like we're not messing with any athletes. Like, we're not trying to talk to anybody. We're not out here putting our bodies on display. We're trying to be, just be respected and do our jobs in the right way. So it's happened multiple times, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. I just know that it's not a me problem, it's a them problem. And you really do have to accept that sometimes. Like, I know it's not me. It's not a me issue.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with that. I think Black women are always seen as both too much and not enough at the same time, especially when it comes to, our bodies. I think that there's so many residual things that happen when you are hypersexualizing a person. You are caring much more about what they look like than you are what they're saying. I mean, I can't tell you how often I'll put up an interview and all the comments and tweets are about my body or how I look or that I'm cute, or that it's something like that. And it's like, while it is okay, it's like nice to say that about a person. Sure, if you're being respectful, it's okay to compliment. It's not okay to only compliment, because what you are saying is that you don't care about the words coming out of my mouth. And the more you do that, the more you are kind of subliminally devaluing my voice and reducing me to just my outer. And I don't see that happen to anybody other than women. Like, and just I don't know why it is we will look at a Black woman and like fetishize them or sexualize them, but it has happened to me my whole life. I mean, Black women will be 12 years old and be sexualized. It's very sad, and it's a thing that I don't think we talk about enough. We don't let Black girls be Black girls. It's like a Black woman becomes a woman. I mean, like a Black girl becomes a woman the moment she can like talk. It's very strange the way that we kind of treat Black bodies, and that's another thing I don't know the answer to, but that's probably one of the more hurtful things. Like, imagine being treated away just because you exist. Like, you can't help the way your body looks, and you can't help the way clothes fit you. But for whatever reason, it is the point of conversation anytime you're seen. that's something frustrating because there's nothing that you can do about that.
Well, I wanted to ask Natasha a question. Just being in the professional basketball realm and then knowing your competing counterpart being the NBA during that time, just, men and women. How do you guys kind of move forward, knowing that there's such a difference in pay, and I know you guys' union has, really, really voiced that, and I gained a lot of traction as far as you guys' CBA. But, like, how's that going forward in the future? You know what I'm saying? That maybe y'all can see that changing.
Absolutely. It's a continued fight and every generation of women that go through the W, we're fighting for that next generation, that they won't have to fight these same fights. When you're talking about the wage gap, we understand the reality of our leagues and where the NBA and the WNBA are. We understand that we have to work different based off of revenue and viewership. But this is where the conversation of betting on women comes in place. If you look at the numbers from this year in the Wubble, it increased tremendously. Why? Because ESPN, CBS, all these channels finally put women's basketball on TV and people watch. If you make it really hard for people to watch the WNBA, they're not going to go searching on Google for where they can get a WNBA league pass and then pay $20 to get the league pass. And that's too much work. So let's make it simple. Let's just bet on women, invest in women, and give them an even playing field in a sense. But it's a continued fight every single day. But I am really proud of our NBA counterparts because I think this year more than ever, they stepped up for us. Sure. Whether it is wearing the sweatshirts, whether it is telling people to watch the WNBA and supporting us in our fight for gender equity in a sense, they were huge. And I think for far too long, we've been separated, whether it's the NBA, the WNBA, the NFL, the WNBA, we've been separated. And I think that was purposefully because if we come together and we unite, we're a scary thing. We are truly, there's power in numbers. And so I am really proud to be an athlete during this time in our country because you see the beauty and people stepping up for each other.
One of the questions I had, and I would say I've been a little conservative on this for my lifetime, and so I'd love to hear you guys talk about it, is equality of opportunity and equality of outcome. And just related to pay gap, I think it's a little bit different when you talk about different sports leagues. Obviously, there's different amounts of revenue coming in, and so it's not going to be totally equal. But I'd just love to hear some of y'all's insights on that because there's if you wanted men and women to, if you wanted half the people that became engineers to be men and half to be women, you're never going to get that if you give everybody the equal opportunity to get that, because women will steer more to different type of jobs. It's nothing to do with intelligence. It's just more to do with kind of biological differences in personalities. And same with nursing. If you wanted 50-50, you're going to get like 20-1 nursing. And so I'm curious as to what y'all's thoughts are on how you combat that point that people make when it comes to do with equality of opportunity and equality of outcome when it comes to pay gap.
Well, Dr. Lee, I would assume you know the most about this because I don't. But I would say I don't know how true that would be. Because I think the bigger thing is you maybe become what you see, or if you hear someone say that maybe you can't be, you can't be a nurse. If you're a guy, you can't be an engineer, then maybe you won't be. But I know that a lot of studies show that the more they have put these like STEM programs and put them in front of girls and young women, they are absolutely gravitating towards those fields.
I would just like to situate that a little bit further. I think, Taylor, you're dead on, and that what the research actually shows is that we I think Thomas is tapping into what we kind of believe as a society, right? Girls kind of naturally go to these maybe caring professions or less math, science oriented. But that's actually counter to what we see, in that those distinctions and that those choices are really about opportunity rather than some natural inclination. But it's about opportunity and exposure. And that when women are encouraged, or young girls are encouraged to take AP math instead of maybe just taking AP English, or when they're exposed to coding programs in their middle schools, or when they're exposed to examples of female engineers or Black female engineers, that they're more likely to pursue those roles. What we see though is that the dominant beliefs and stereotypes about who can be an engineer or who can be a doctor, that those shade the types of messages that young girls, but particularly girls of color, receive about what they can and cannot do. So you have teachers, you have advisors, you have gatekeepers along the way that constantly reinforce those kind of dominant stereotypes about what you should be doing or what types of opportunities are best.
Talking to, whether it be, my godmom who's a sheriff out in Arizona, not sheriff, a chief of police out in Arizona. And, she goes talks to these schools just like I go talk to these schools out in Arizona. They look at me and it's like, oh, Cam Jordan is a football player, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have Jerry Williams, who's a chief of police, and a lot of kids have never seen a woman, let alone a Black woman, be a chief of police out in Arizona. So it's like, oh, I never even thought about I could do something like this. It opens up the gates. So specifically just speaking, it's not model or data or anything about it, but when you see something's actually achievable, it makes it that much more easy to strive for that goal. So when you see Maria Taylor or Taylor Rooks and they're behind camera, a lot of the girls are saying, hey, I want to be a sideline reporter because it's something that they see that's able to be achieved. And so if we see, more doctors, if we see more, I could care less, Kamala Harris becomes president, there's going to be that much more of a strive for something that is achievable. And it's not, man versus woman versus whatever it is. It's the basic principle that if you see it, then you can achieve it. I mean, you've been hearing that since you were, 2 years old. But what makes it seem that much more obtainable is seeing somebody who's like you be in that position. Like, I grew up all my life and I saw my dad play football. I'm not saying it was something that I knew I could do, but when I look at him and, I saw that he was a 6-time Pro Bowler, played for the Minnesota Vikings, I was like, a lot like our stepbrothers. He's like, the son comes in, he's like, hey, we're a family of learned doctors. Like, it's just that much more easy when you see somebody close to you to be able to do it. So if you have somebody like you guys are all here, sitting here, and, people see you, that's something that's obtainable. And so I'd say to you, whether it be guys, be nurses, or whatever it is, it's whatever you see that you physically think that you can obtain. So honestly, we just need more pioneers.
For sure.
And that's in every category. If we have somebody in every stat or every category that there is, and you see that pay gap difference, I mean, you look at Viola Davis and her and how she talks about the pay gap. And everything that she's accomplished, she should be one of the highest paid actresses of of our era or whatever it is, but she's not because there is discrepancies. There's discriminatory discrepancies that doesn't allow her to do so. But if she breaks that mold, then you have somebody else that's an achievable block. But that's just, again, statement, not question.
Something else I think that's like something else real quick that's important about representation is that it works both ways. So representation isn't only important for the people that are looking at the person they look like, it's also for the person who doesn't look like that person. As you are growing up, right? I think about, my parents, and this really came into my mind after this book I read called Heavy, but I think about my parents, and they grew up and they saw, Leave It to Beaver, and they also saw all the white head coaches of NFL and NBA teams. They also saw white people on, Star Trek. They also saw white people on MacGyver. They saw all different types of white people. Everywhere that you look, you saw them. On the flip side, though, the white people weren't always seeing Black people as they grew up. And what that really meant was that we knew white people, but white people did not know us. So the more that we're showing different types of Black people in these different spaces, because Black people are not a monolith, you aren't just representing, you know, Blackness to other Black people, you're representing Blackness to other white people. And that's also important for everybody to understand the large scope of being a Black person or being a Black woman. So while we talk about representation, it's important to be like, you know, if you see it, you can be it. You also need to see it because you also need to know it exists.
Yeah.
So representation is super important.
As NFL players and being part of this league and this institution, we've done a great job of raising awareness to many different things, whether it's breast cancer, whether it's our troops, or whether it's domestic violence, and now this year with Inspired Change. So we know how to amplify voices, and this is an attempt to do that.